Chapter 9, Jewish Fables by E. Michael Jones. Heaven on Earth. According to Professor Harari, the combination of science and capitalism is going to lead to heaven on earth. Jews always promise heaven on earth and then deliver the opposite as soon as they get their hands on the reins of political power. Bolshevism in Russia is one example. Zionism in Palestine is another. The neoconservative end of history, which followed on the heels of communism's collapse, is still another. Professor Harari is no exception to this rule. Paradise, he tells us toward the end of his book, is right around the corner. All we need is more patience and docility to Professor Harari's utopian view of the world in order to get there. And what does this paradise look like? Well, it looks a lot like New York City, capital of the American Empire, where the new ethic promises paradise on condition that the rich remain greedy and spend their time making more money, and that the masses give free rein to their cravings and passions and buy more and more. But there are other reasons. Paradise is just around the corner because, for the first time in history, the world is dominated by a peace-loving elite, politicians, business people, intellectuals, and artists who genuinely see war as both evil and avoidable. We know that Barack Obama won the Nobel Peace Prize while simultaneously conducting 7 wars in the Middle East. Professor Harari unfortunately failed to give us the names of the individuals who make up this peace-loving elite, which is a shame because we would surely like to know who they are, if for no other reason than out of a desire to follow their instructions more faithfully, so that we can hasten our arrival in paradise. But the implication is clear. It is the same group which tried to create heaven on earth in the past. Simon Bar Kokhba, Shabbatai Zevi, Karl Marx, Theodore Herzl, Lev Trotsky, Irving Kristol, David Brooks, David Frum, in short, the Tikkun Olam crowd. Tikkunolam. It turns out that the thing the members of this peace-loving elite has in common, from the zealots at the time of Christ to the neocon chicken hawks who got us into the current morass in the Middle East, was their love of what Trotsky called perpetual war. Be that as it may, Professor Harari has very definite ideas about the Jewish paradise that he and his friends are preparing for us. The end of history corresponds to the arrival of the perfect social order, which is based on capitalism and science, which tells us that, quote, as far as we can tell, from a purely scientific viewpoint, human life has absolutely no meaning. Is the preceding sentence a meaningful statement? Humans are the outcome of blind evolutionary processes that operate without goal or purpose. Our actions are not part of some divine cosmic plan, and if planet Earth were to blow up tomorrow morning, the universe would probably keep going about its business as usual. As far as we can tell at this point, human subjectivity would not be missed. Hence, any meaning that people ascribe to their lives is just a delusion. The other worldly meanings medieval people found in their lives were no more deluded than the modern humanist, nationalist, and capitalist meanings modern people find. End quote. Hence, it should come as no surprise to learn that the goal of history as manifested by the American Empire and administered by Jews like Harari is not the happiness of its inhabitants. Quote, the dynamics of history are not directed towards enhancing human well-being. There is no basis for thinking that the most successful cultures in history are necessarily the best ones for Homo sapiens. Like evolution, history disregards the happiness of individual organisms. End quote. This is not reason for despair, however, because happiness is still possible even if life has absolutely no meaning because, quote, biologists hold that our mental and emotional world is governed by biochemical mechanisms shaped by millions of years of evolution. Like all other mental states, our subjective well-being is not determined by external parameters such as salary, social relations, or political rights. Rather, it is determined by a complex system of nerves, neurons, synapses, and various biochemical substances such as serotonin, dopamine, and oxytocin. End quote. It turns out that history has a meaning after all, and that the ultimate meaning is pharmaceutical. Quote, if we accept the biological approach to happiness, then history turns out to be of minor importance, since most historical events have had no impact on our biochemistry. History can change the external stimuli that cause serotonin to be secreted, yet it does not change the resulting serotonin levels, and hence it cannot make people happier. End quote. If the only thing that matters is the level of serotonin in my blood, Why did I waste my time reading Harari's book? Was it only to learn that, quote, there is only one historical development that has real significance. Today we finally realize that the keys to happiness are in the hands of our biochemical system. We can stop wasting our time on politics and social reforms, putschs and ideologies, and focus instead on the only thing that can make us truly happy, manipulating our biochemistry, end quote. After wasting our time by slogging through 400 pages of illogicality, goodness gracious, illogicality crouched in bad prose, we learn to our chagrin that history is bunk and true happiness lies in ingesting the right chemicals. The same Jews who used to promote evolution are now promoting a docile, drugged-out population, probably because the Jews are now in control and want to remain there. Turning Karl Marx upside down, Professor Harari feels that opiates should be the religion of the masses. Quote, if we invest billions in understanding our brain chemistry and developing appropriate treatments, we can make people far happier than ever before, without any need of revolutions. Prozac, for example, does not change regimes, but by raising serotonin levels, it lifts people out of their depression. Nothing captures the biological argument better than the famous New Age slogan, happiness begins within. Money, social status, plastic surgery, beautiful houses, powerful positions, none of these will bring you happiness. Lasting happiness comes only from serotonin, dopamine, and oxytocin, end quote. Or did he mean OxyContin? According to Harari, each day, each person should take a dose of Soma, a synthetic drug which makes people happy without harming their productivity and efficiency. Aldous Huxley popularized the originally Indian concept of Soma as a form of control in his dystopian novel Brave New World, which appeared in 1932. The selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor, which goes by the brand name of Prozac, entered medical use in 1986. Soma, in its current form, came on the market in 1995 and is known as OxyContin. OxyContin, which is the time-release version of oxycodone, an opiate which has been in existence since 1916, is a Jewish invention. It was created by the Sackler family and marketed by their drug firm Purdue Pharma. In 2007, Purdue Pharma had to pay a $600 million fine for lying to doctors about the potential for patients to abuse OxyContin, and thereby almost single-handedly igniting what is now being called the opioid crisis. The $600 million Purdue Pharma paid was a drop in the bucket compared to the billions OxyContin has earned for it since the drug was first approved by the FDA. The Sackler family alone has a net worth of $13 billion, which places them above the Rockefellers and the Mellons on the list of America's richest families. Purdue Pharma's founder, Arthur Sackler, along with his brothers, grew up in Brooklyn during the Depression as the child of Jewish immigrants from Galicia and Poland. His genius lay not so much in the chemistry of the brain as in the chemistry of modern advertising. In 1997, Arthur was posthumously inducted into the Medical Advertising Hall of Fame, and a citation praised his achievement in bringing the full power of advertising and promotion to pharmaceutical marketing. Sackler was, in other words, a drug dealer who knew how to change the system to accommodate what was previously known as either unethical or illegal activity. In this, he was no different from other Jews of his generation, like Meyer Lansky or Mo Dalitz, for instance, who accomplished the same feat by bringing about the decriminalization of gambling and usury. The Sackler family epitomizes in our day the perfect marriage of science and capitalism which Harari celebrates in *Sapiens*. Like the English involvement in the opium trade in the 19th century, Arthur Sackler provided the Imperial Project with practical knowledge, ideological justification, and pharmaceutical gadgets, which turned Americans into Harari's idea of the ideal citizen, which is to say, into a mass of drugged-out zombies who made the Jews rich by becoming their docile chemical slaves. Without the collaboration of the Jewish pharmaceutical industry, it is highly questionable whether Europeans, i.e. the Anglo-American Empire, could have conquered the world. That concludes Chapter 9, Jewish Fables by E. Michael Jones.